The call came on a Tuesday morning in late November. My daughter-in-law, Patricia, her voice bright and insistent through the phone speaker. "Dad, we're doing Thanksgiving at the lake house this year. Trevor and I really want you there. It's been too long since we've all been together as a family." I stood in my Toronto apartment, looking out at the gray November sky, feeling that familiar weight in my chest. The lake house. Our place in Muskoka, the place where Catherine had spent her last summer, where we'd watched the loons and counted stars from the dock. I hadn't been back in 3 years. Not since the funeral. "I don't know, Patricia," I said, choosing my words carefully. "It's a long drive from the city, and my hip has been acting up again." "That's exactly why you should come," she pressed. "Trevor can help you with anything you need. Besides, the fresh air will do you good. You can't spend every holiday alone in that apartment, Malcolm. Catherine wouldn't want that." The use of my late wife's name stung, but Patricia had a point. At 68 years old, I'd become too comfortable with solitude. My son Trevor was my only child, and Patricia had been part of our family for 15 years. If they wanted me there, maybe I was being stubborn for no reason. "All right," I heard myself saying. "I'll drive up Wednesday afternoon." "Perfect." Her enthusiasm seemed almost too bright. "Oh, and Dad, don't worry about bringing anything. We're handling everything. Just bring yourself and maybe those old photo albums Trevor loves. You know, the ones from when he was little." After we hung up, I sat in my leather chair, the one Catherine had picked out 30 years ago, and felt something I couldn't quite name. Not excitement. Exactly. More like unease dressed up as anticipation. Let me start from the beginning, properly this time. I'm Malcolm Chen, and I spent 42 years as a structural engineer in Toronto before retiring 5 years ago. My wife Catherine and I bought the Muskoka Lake House in 1995, back when Trevor was 12 and property up there was still affordable. It became our sanctuary, our place away from the city's demands. We'd spend every summer there, sometimes entire months, with Catherine painting on the dock while I read or worked on the endless small repairs that old cottages demand. Catherine passed away 3 years ago, ovarian cancer. By the time they found it, stage 4. She died in our bedroom at the lake house, holding my hand, watching the sun set over the water through our window. She'd insisted on dying there, not in some hospital room. "This is where I've been happiest," she'd told me. "This is where I want to say goodbye." I hadn't been back since. The drive up to Muskoka took 3 hours through wet highways and bare trees. Wednesday afternoon traffic was lighter than I expected, and I found myself pulling into the familiar gravel driveway just as the sun was starting its descent. The house looked the same, a sprawling, cedar-sided cottage with the green metal roof and the wide wraparound porch. Trevor's BMW was already parked in front of the garage. He came out to meet me before I'd even gotten my suitcase from the trunk. My son, 43 years old now, wearing expensive casual clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. He'd done well for himself in commercial real estate development. Very well, though I'd never fully understood the details of his business. "Dad," he embraced me warmly. "I'm so glad you made it safely. How was the drive?" "Fine, fine," I said, accepting his help with my bag. Roads were clear. Patricia appeared in the doorway, blonde and perfectly put together even in jeans and a sweater. "Malcolm, welcome. Come in. Come in. I've got coffee on." The house smelled different. Not wrong, exactly, just different. Less like cedar and lake water, more like expensive candles and cleaning products. Everything looked immaculate, more decorated than Catherine had ever kept it. Patricia had clearly been busy. "We've done some updates," Trevor said, watching me take it in. "New furniture in the living room, renovated the master bathroom. Hope you don't mind, Dad. The place needed some work." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Our old couch, the one Catherine had napped on countless times, was gone. In its place sat sleek modern pieces that looked uncomfortable. That first evening passed pleasantly enough. We had dinner around the old pine table in the kitchen, one of the few pieces that remained unchanged. Patricia served roast chicken and talked about their plans for Thanksgiving dinner. Trevor asked about my health, my routines, whether I was keeping up with my friends from the engineering firm. "I'm doing fine," I assured them. "Bridge twice a week, swimming at the community center. Dr. Patel says my blood work is excellent for a man my age." "That's wonderful," Patricia said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Though Dad, speaking of Dr. Patel, Trevor and I, We're thinking you might benefit from being closer to us. There's a wonderful seniors community in Oakville, very upscale, with full medical support. We looked into it, and they have availability. I set down my fork carefully. I'm not ready for a seniors community, Patricia. I'm 68, not 90. I'm managing just fine on my own. Of course you are, Trevor jumped in smoothly. Mom's just thinking ahead. No pressure, Dad. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. I noticed he'd called her Mom, not Patricia. When had that started? That night, I lay awake in the guest room. They'd put me in the smaller bedroom on the main floor, citing my hip issues and the stairs. But this wasn't my room. My room, Catherine's and mine, was upstairs overlooking the lake. I could hear footsteps above me, creaking floorboards, low voices I couldn't quite make out. The unease I'd felt on the phone had grown into something harder to ignore. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and bright. I woke early, my old habits unchanged, and made my way to the kitchen to find Patricia already up, working on dinner preparations. She seemed startled when I walked in. "Malcolm, you're up early." "Always have been," I said, moving toward the coffee maker. "Oh, I've got a special pot brewing for you," she said quickly. "Your regular coffee. Trevor mentioned you like it strong. This one's almost ready." She poured me a cup from a different pot than the one she'd been drinking from. I accepted it, noting the detail. Maybe she was just being thoughtful. "Can I help with anything?" I asked. No, you're a guest. Just relax. Why don't you go sit on the porch? The morning light is beautiful." I took my coffee and walked out to the porch, settling into one of the Adirondack chairs. The lake stretched out before me, mirror still in the morning calm. This view. God, I'd missed this view. I raised the coffee cup to my lips and stopped. The smell was off. Not bad, exactly, but different. Chemical almost, masked by the coffee aroma. I set the cup down on the chair's wide arm and sat very still, my engineering mind clicking through possibilities. When I was certain I was alone, I poured the coffee between the porch boards, listening to it drip into the dead leaves below. Then I went inside, rinsed the cup, and poured myself coffee from the pot Patricia had been using. "Changed your mind about being alone?" Patricia asked, seeing me come back through the kitchen. "Too cold," I said simply. "Mind if I have more of this one?" "That's decaf," she said quickly. "I thought you wanted regular." "Changed my mind," I said, pouring carefully. This coffee smelled normal, tasted normal. I spent the morning watching, really watching. The way you look at a building when you're checking for structural problems, systematic and thorough. Trevor and Patricia moved through the house with an easy familiarity that came from being here often, more often than I'd realized, certainly. Patricia knew where everything was, even things Catherine had kept in odd places. The spice drawer, the spare keys, the fuse box. Around noon, while Patricia was focused on the turkey and Trevor had gone upstairs to make some calls, I slipped into the small office off the living room. This had been my space, where I'd kept files and paperwork related to the cottage. Now it looked like Trevor had been using it extensively. His laptop sat on the desk, papers spread around it. I shouldn't have looked. I knew it even as I was doing it, but something told me I needed to. The papers weren't hidden. A folder, right there on the desk, labeled Muskoka Property, Development Potential. Inside, architectural drawings. Not for renovations, for demolition. Plans for a high-end condominium complex. 8 units, waterfront. The property lines matched our lot exactly. My hands shook as I flipped through the documents. Market analysis. Projected profits. Partnership agreements with a development company. Trevor's signature on multiple pages. At the bottom of the stack, a document that made my blood run cold. Power of attorney papers, not yet filed, with my signature space blank. And next to it, a letter from a doctor I'd never heard of, outlining concerns about my cognitive decline and ability to make sound decisions regarding my finances. I'd never met this doctor, never had cognitive issues. Dr. Patel had just given me a clean bill of health 3 weeks ago. I photographed everything with my phone, my hands steadier now with purpose. Then I carefully arranged everything exactly as I'd found it and returned to the living room. "Dad?" Trevor appeared at the top of the stairs. "What are you doing?" "Just stretching my legs," I said calmly. "My hip stiffens up if I sit too long. Patricia mentioned you'd done work on the master bathroom. Mind if I take a look?" Something flickered across his face. Calculation, maybe. Then his smile returned. Sure, Dad. Go ahead. I climbed the stairs slowly, making a show of using the railing for support. The master bedroom door was closed. I opened it and stepped into the room where my wife had died. They'd completely redecorated. Catherine's paintings were gone from the walls. Her side of the closet had been emptied. The bed was new, the furniture different. It was like she'd never existed here at all. I stood there, grief and anger mixing into something crystalline and cold. The bathroom had indeed been renovated. Beautiful work, expensive fixtures. But when I turned to leave, I noticed something. The door frame, the old wooden one Catherine had insisted on keeping, had several fresh holes in it. Screw holes. Above the existing hinges. The kind you'd make if you were installing a lock that wasn't there now. I ran my fingers over the holes. Recent. Very recent. The wood dust was still fresh in the grooves. What do you think? Trevor appeared in the bedroom doorway. Very nice, I said evenly. Must have cost a fortune. Worth it, though. We're up here so often now. We wanted it to feel like our place. You know, in addition to being yours, of course. Our place, not my place. Our place. I moved past him carefully. I think I'll lie down before dinner. Long drive yesterday, you know. Of course, Dad. Rest up. Dinner's at 6. I went to the guest room and closed the door. Then, I did what any retired engineer would do when facing a structural problem. I assessed the situation systematically. Facts. Someone, almost certainly Trevor with Patricia's help, wanted me declared mentally incompetent. The falsified medical report. The unsigned power of attorney. They'd planned to sell the lake house for development. The profit potential was enormous. Easily $2 or $3 million given Muskoka's current market. But the property was solely in my name. Catherine had insisted on that for estate planning reasons. Trevor wouldn't inherit it until I died or was incapacitated. The coffee this morning. What had been in it? I pulled out my phone and texted my doctor's office, requesting an emergency appointment for the following week. Then I called my lawyer, James Morton, whom I'd known for 30 years. Malcolm, his familiar voice was warm. Happy Thanksgiving. James, I need your help. Do you have a few minutes? I explained everything, keeping my voice low. James listened without interruption. Malcolm, he said, finally, his tone grave. You need to leave that house. Now. Today. Before dinner? This is serious. If they've gone this far with falsified medical documents, you could be in real danger. I can't just leave. They'll know I discovered something. Then play it smart. Stay for dinner. Act normal. Then claim you're not feeling well and head back to Toronto tonight. I'll meet you at your apartment tomorrow morning, and we'll figure out our next steps. But Malcolm, if you think there was something in that coffee, don't eat or drink anything else they give you. Understand? We talked for another few minutes, working out details. When I hung up, my hands were shaking again, but not from fear. From rage. My son. My only child. The boy I'd taught to fish off that dock, to identify birds, to appreciate the quiet beauty of the lakes. The young man I'd supported through university, celebrated with at his wedding, believed in even when his first business venture failed. That boy was willing to drug me, declare me incompetent, and steal my home to fund his real estate ambitions. Dinner was at 6, as planned. Patricia had outdone herself. Turkey, stuffing, 3 kinds of vegetables, fresh rolls, homemade cranberry sauce. It looked magnificent, spread out on our old pine table. This looks wonderful, Patricia, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. My seat. Always my seat. For 29 years in this house. Thank you, Malcolm. Trevor, would you like to say grace? My son stood, raising his wine glass. Patricia stood too, her glass catching the candlelight. I remained seated. I'd like to make a toast, Trevor said, his voice carrying that professional smoothness he used in business dealings. To family, to gratitude, to new chapters and necessary changes. He looked at Patricia, then at me, and to Dad. May this be his last Thanksgiving in this house. May his next chapter be easier, more supported, more managed. Patricia clinked her glass against his. They both smiled at me, waiting for me to stand, to raise my glass, to accept whatever fate they'd planned. I smiled back. Let them see what they expected to see. A tired old man, perhaps a bit confused, certainly compliant. To family, I said quietly, and raised my water glass. Not the wine Trevor had poured for me, the water I'd gotten myself from the tap before sitting down. I saw the flicker of annoyance cross Patricia's face. Dinner proceeded with careful small talk. The food was excellent. I watched carefully which dishes Trevor and Patricia served themselves from first, and only took from those. I moved food around my plate more than I ate it, claiming my appetite wasn't what it used to be. "You're not eating much, Dad," Trevor observed. "Just tired, I suppose. Maybe coming up here wasn't such a good idea after all. I think I might head back to Toronto after dinner, get a good night's sleep in my own bed." "Tonight?" Patricia's voice rose slightly. "But Malcolm, it's Thanksgiving evening. The roads will be dark. Why don't you stay? Leave first thing in the morning. I'll be fine. I've driven these roads in the dark plenty of times." "Dad, I really don't think that's wise." Trevor's tone had shifted, become firmer. "You seem disoriented, confused. Maybe you should lie down for a bit. We can talk about this later." "I'm not confused, Trevor." I kept my voice level. "I'm perfectly clear, clearer than I've been in years, actually." Something changed in the room. The pretense dropped from Trevor's face like a mask falling away. "You went through my office," he said flatly. "I did. Then you know there's no point in pretending anymore." He leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxing into something cold and calculating. "Here's the reality, Dad. You're old. You're alone. This house is worth a fortune that's going to waste because you're too sentimental to see its potential. I'm giving you a chance to participate in its development, to benefit from it while you're still alive, in a nice, comfortable facility where you'll be taken care of. By declaring me mentally incompetent with falsified medical records?" Patricia's hand moved to her phone on the table. "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't touch that phone, Patricia." "Or what?" Trevor laughed. Actually laughed. "What are you going to do, Dad? You're one old man against two of us. And honestly, who's going to believe you? You haven't been right since Mom died. Everyone can see that. Living alone in that depressing apartment. No social life. Obsessing over the past. It won't be hard to convince people you've lost your grip on reality." I felt something crystallize inside me. This was my son. The child Catherine and I had loved more than our own lives. And he'd become this. "When did it change, Trevor?" I asked quietly. "When did I become an obstacle instead of your father?" He had the grace to look away. "It's nothing personal, Dad. It's just business. You're sitting on a valuable asset you're not using. It's irresponsible, actually. That property could be generating significant income, providing housing, contributing to the economy. Instead, it's just sitting here, empty 11 months a year, because you can't let go of Mom. This was her home, our home. She's dead," Patricia said bluntly. "She's been dead for 3 years. This is just a house, Malcolm. Wood and nails, and a nice view. It's time to be practical." I stood up slowly, watching them tense. "You're right about one thing. Catherine is gone. But she taught me something before she died. She said, Malcolm, people show you who they really are when they think they can get away with something. Watch for that. Remember it." I pulled out my phone. "I've documented everything in your office, Trevor. The development plans, the falsified medical report, the power of attorney papers. I've sent copies to my lawyer, my doctor, and a friend who has instructions to go to the police if I don't check in with him tonight." Trevor's face went white, then red. "You had no right." "I had every right. It's my house, my property, my life, and you've just committed fraud. Multiple counts, actually." Patricia stood up quickly. "We can explain all of this. You're misunderstanding." "I'm not misunderstanding anything. I'm a structural engineer. I spent my career analyzing systems, finding weaknesses, understanding how things fail. I know exactly what you were planning." Trevor stood too, his hands gripping the back of his chair. For a moment, I thought he might come at me. But he just stood there, breathing hard, his carefully constructed plan collapsing around him. "If you leave now," I said calmly, "if you get in your car and drive back to Toronto tonight, I might consider not pressing charges. I haven't decided yet. But if you try to stop me, if you touch that phone, if you make any move that I interpret as threatening, I will call 911 right now and let the police sort this out." The silence stretched out. I could hear the old house settling around us, the wind picking up outside, the distant call of a loon on the lake. "You're making a mistake," Trevor said finally, his voice tight with controlled fury. "We were trying to help you. Help yourselves, you mean. Fine." He threw his napkin on the table. "Patricia, get your things. We're leaving." "Trevor, we can't just—" "Now." I watched them move through the house, gathering their belongings with jerky, angry movements. They were packed and out the door in 15 minutes, not speaking to me, barely speaking to each other. Trevor's BMW roared to life, spitting gravel as he accelerated down the driveway too fast. Then I was alone in the silence. I sat back down at the table, surrounded by the remains of our Thanksgiving dinner. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off. I'd faced down my son, the child I'd raised, and seen a stranger looking back at me. The worst part was, I wasn't even surprised. Not really. There had been signs over the years. The way Trevor talked about money, about success, about worth being measured in assets and opportunities. The way Patricia had slowly encouraged him to see emotional attachments as weaknesses to be overcome. I'd ignored the signs because I'd wanted to believe my son was the person I'd raised, not the person he'd chosen to become. I spent that night in the house, in my bedroom upstairs, Catherine's and mine. I brought up some of her paintings from the basement where Patricia had stored them and hung them back on the walls. I found her favorite throw blanket, still tucked in a closet, and wrapped myself in it. I didn't sleep much. Instead, I sat in the chair by the window, watching the lake under the moon, and thought about everything that had happened. The next morning, I drove back to Toronto and met with James Morton. We spent 3 hours going through everything, documenting it all properly. The falsified medical report turned out to be enough for serious fraud charges. James contacted both the police and the regulatory college for the doctor whose name had been forged. Trevor tried to call me 4 times over the next week. I didn't answer. Patricia sent emails, trying a different tack, claiming there had been misunderstandings, that they'd been pressured by financial problems, that Trevor had been under tremendous stress. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, the police knocked on Trevor's door. The charges were fraud, attempted fraud regarding power of attorney, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The doctor whose name they'd forged was also filing charges. Patricia was charged as an accessory. Trevor tried to fight it initially, hiring expensive lawyers, crafting narratives about family miscommunication and misinterpreted documents. But the evidence was clear, documented in his own handwriting and emails. His lawyers eventually advised him to accept a plea deal. He received 18 months in prison, with eligibility for parole after serving 6 months. Patricia received 12 months of house arrest and community service. Both were ordered to pay restitution, though there was nothing to restore except my trust, and that was gone forever. The hardest call I had to make was to Trevor's daughter, my granddaughter Emma, who was 21 and studying environmental science at McGill. She was devastated. She'd had no idea what her parents were planning. I met with her in Montreal, over coffee in a cafe near her campus, and told her the whole story. "Grandpa," she cried, "I'm so sorry. I don't understand how they could do this." "I don't either, sweetheart," I admitted. "But this isn't your burden to carry. You're not responsible for your parents' choices. Will you ever forgive them?" I thought about that for a long time. I don't know. Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen. They were willing to destroy my autonomy, my dignity, my home. For money, that's not something you come back from easily. Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. "Can I still see you? I mean, if you don't want to be around the family anymore, I'd understand. But, Emma," I took her hand, "you're always welcome in my life. Always. This has nothing to do with you." We kept in touch after that. She came to visit the lake house that next summer, helping me restore it, bringing back some of Catherine's touches that Patricia had removed. She brought her boyfriend, a kind young man studying forestry. We spent evenings on the dock, talking about Catherine, about the past, about Emma's hopes for her future. As for Trevor and Patricia, they divorced 18 months after his release from prison. The stress of the legal proceedings, the shame, the financial devastation from legal fees and restitution, all of it had destroyed whatever had been holding them together. Trevor lost his real estate business. His partners distanced themselves once the fraud charges became public. No one wanted to work with someone who'd tried to defraud their own father. He tried to reach out to me after the divorce, a letter delivered through James Morton. It was long, rambling, full of excuses and half apologies. He claimed he'd been influenced by Patricia, by financial pressure, by fear of failure. He said he'd lost his way and wanted a chance to make amends. I read the letter 3 times. Then I filed it away and didn't respond. Maybe that makes me unforgiving. Maybe there's a part of me that should be bigger than this, should find a way to rebuild a relationship with my only child. But I can't forget the coldness in his eyes at that Thanksgiving dinner, the casual way he'd been willing to destroy my life, the months of planning it must have taken. The property is now in a trust, with Emma as the primary beneficiary after my death. She'll inherit the lake house and the decision about what to do with it. I've made it clear that if she wants to sell it for development, that's her choice. But it will be her choice, made freely, without coercion or fraud. I'm 71 now. 3 years have passed since that Thanksgiving. I still spend summers at the lake house, though I've made peace with the idea that I might need to sell it eventually, when maintaining it becomes too much. But that will be my decision, made in my time, on my terms. I think about that dinner sometimes, about Trevor's toast. May this be his last Thanksgiving in this house. He was wrong, of course. I've celebrated 3 more Thanksgivings here since then, with Emma, with friends from Toronto who drive up for the weekend, with Dr. Patel and his wife last year. But he was right about one thing. It was the last Thanksgiving I spent as a father who believed his son was fundamentally good. That man died that night, along with a lot of illusions I'd been carrying for too long. I've learned something important in these years, something I wish I'd understood sooner. Love, real love, doesn't demand that you sacrifice yourself on the altar of someone else's greed or ambition. Being a parent doesn't mean being a victim, and family, the kind that matters, is built on respect and honesty, not just shared DNA. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's this: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, investigate. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them, and understand that enabling destructive behavior, even from people you love, isn't kindness. It's complicity. Your life, your autonomy, your dignity, these things have value beyond measure. Don't let anyone, not even family, especially not family, convince you otherwise. Because the people who love you genuinely won't ask you to diminish yourself for their benefit. And the people who do ask that don't love you the way you deserve to be loved. I live alone now, but I'm not lonely. Emma visits regularly. I've reconnected with old friends from the engineering firm. I volunteer at a community center, teaching math to new immigrants. I swim 3 times a week. I'm writing a book about structural engineering principles for lay readers, something I've always wanted to do. And every summer, I sit on that dock at the lake house, Catherine's paintings back on the walls, her memory alive in every corner, and I watch the loons and count the stars. Sometimes I pour a glass of wine and raise it to the sunset. To family, I say quietly to the evening air, the real kind, the ones who earn the name. The lake reflects the sky, constant and true, and I am at peace. This is my home. It always has been. And no one, not even the son I raised, can take that truth away from me.